So now we're going to have a bit of a chat about waistbands. This is the pre-cut shirt, a short sample, and the waistband on this is just like a regular pant that has a fly front. So zip in the front here and a button at the top. These tend to be, pretty secure. And the good thing about having the button there is that you can, if you need to make it a bit tighter, you can move the button over a little bit, or the other way around. So this has an extension. So this is the center front here, but we then have an extension because we need the extension because we've got that our zip extension sewn on here. So you can see if we match up the side seams here, match up the side seams that one is that much longer than the other. So you just have to take that into account when you're making the waistband. So that's why you need to know how wide your extension is before you make the waistband. Otherwise they won't match. We've got this one here. So this is the pre-cut skirt, and at the on this one here we have an invisible zip which goes in the back, and this invisible zip goes all the way to the top of the waistband. And because it goes all the way to the top, there's no need for any extension. It's the same on both sides. We don't have a button or anything. But that means though that to do this nicely here on both sides, same on both sides, it's just so much easier to make it work if you've got a seam along the top edge here. So this is actually a two-piece waistband with a seam along the top. Actually in the shorts here, this is a two-piece waistband as well. So we've also got a seam along the top edge here, and it's just nice if you're not doing any top stitching. It's just a really nice finish to have because it means that you've got the understitching there, so that sort of like pulls the inside over a little bit, so everything's quite nice. And you've got a ditch stitch holding the waistband on here, so there's no top stitching at all on the waistband, which is nice. And then this is another option for a waistband as well. This one here has this. So this is a pant. This is actually the toile of the flat front women's pant. And this one here, we just made a smaller waistband, and this one has a fold along the top. So the pattern for this goes from the seam allowance to the stitch line up to the fold, and then down again on the other side. This has overlocking along the inside here, and because this sample has an invisible zip in the back, and it has like the one-piece waistband, it means that we then need a little extension. So this, unlike the fly front, this extension is just like a little flap, so we don't have a fly extension that it sews onto. We just have this little flap here. So the idea is that you would have a buttonhole here like we do on this one, buttonhole here, and then the button would sew onto that little flap there. If you didn't have that flap and you had a buttonhole here, there's nowhere to sew the button onto, so that's why you need the flap in the back there. Okay. So then making the waistbands for these, we need to, and again these are half scale patterns, but first of all we need to measure the waist. I'm measuring the block. If you've got a pattern, just keep in mind that you might have a like a pocket opening here. So when you check the pattern, when you're measuring the pattern, don't forget this section of the waistline here. Like, don't just measure from the center front to here, because that's where like the main pattern piece, and then forget this bit and then measure across the back, because your waistband will end up at least 6 centimeters smaller than it needs to be.
So it's all the way just to the side seam.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've just added in a seam here, then you could potentially just measure the block, but just keep that in mind that any changes, design lines or anything that you put into your pants have to be reflected in the waistband. So just measuring, so this is from the centre front here. So centre front to the side seam, here we've got 9 centimetres in half scale. I won't say the full scale measurement because you need to check your pattern. And then from the side seam to the centre back on the back is 9 centimetres as well, excluding the dart. So I measure from the side seam to the dart, to one dart arm, and from the other dart arm to the centre back here. And for this one, it just happens to be 9 centimetres as well. So just drawing the waistband, we have, just draw a line to begin with. We would have a, let's see, actually, if we're doing this, we would actually be doing it the other way. So it would be here, and then, so it would end up being like that. So from the centre front, we need our extension. This extension is 3.5 centimetres full scale, so that's 1.75 half scale. So this is the end of our waistband here. This point is this point here. Then we have our 9 centimetres to get us to the side seam. So that's, so we've gone from here to there, and we need to go from here to the centre back, which is another 9 centimetres. And then from the centre back, so we've gone from here to here, but then we need to go back from here back to here again, because we've got, we need to go all the way across the back here. And then one more, another 9 centimetres to take us from the side seam back to the centre front again. Okay, this waistband is, it's a 4.5 centimetre waistband. Actually, I think it's supposed to be 5. So 2.5 centimetres.
Yeah, a little bit gets pulled to the inside.
Yeah.
When you do your top stitching. Under stitching.
So I've just put this line here. I've put it down the centre of my grading ruler and used that as a guide to get my 2.5 centimetre half scale waistband. If you're a bit unsure about doing that, you could just, do your right angle here, and you could measure down your 2.5 centimetres and put a little mark, and then do the same at the other end as well. So 2.5 centimetres down, put a little mark, and then join those two together to make your waistband. So this is the, actually I've done this around the other way. Anyway, that's all right. Because we're going to have this on as a seam along the top edge here, we can switch it around, so this actually should be on the other side there.
So you'll be cutting pairs.
Yeah, exactly, so we can just use the other one.
Yeah.
So then 1 centimetre seam allowances around each side. And then 1 centimetre on the top edge. So then this would be cut 2, or cut 1 pair. Or actually, before we go into the labelling, then we'll just, I don't think we really need a notch there to indicate that front, because we're probably not going to get lost between the centre front and the end of the extension. So, but we do need a notch on our side seams, notch on our centre back, and notch on our side seam again. Okay, they're the 3 important notches there. And then this waistband would then be actually the grain line down the middle. Grain line usually runs around the body, and so this would be waistband, cut 1 pair, and cut 1 fusing or interfacing. This is our size 10, and then also put your name onto it as well. Okay, then just so then
Piece one.
Yeah, so the one piece one, exactly. Good, thank you, Libby. So for this one here, we would again draw our line. We've got the point, so that's 3. Actually, we do need, this one starts at the back, so if we're doing it this way, we've got our extension, which is 2.5, not quite sure, let's say 2.5 centimeters full scale, 1.25 half scale, and then from the, I don't know the actual measurements. Oh, actually, this is that block. So
Yeah,
I
so
do
it's
know
a
the
bit line
measurements.
again, won't it?
Yeah. So this now is centre back. So on this piece here, the centre back was here, and this is the centre front and the side seam. But on this one, this is actually the centre back here, and then we go from the centre back to the side seam to the centre front to the side seam and back around to the centre back again. So write that on there. So this is side seam, centre front, side seam, centre back. And then the width that we want, so we're going to do 3 centimetres, so 1.5 in half scale. Draw that line, and then remember this top edge here is a fold, and you can see that it is actually like a little bit floppy. I don't think this, because this is just a toile, it's not interfaced, so interfacing would add, you know, a little bit more structure to this as well. So we've gone from here up to this fold, and then we're going down the other side now.
And you usually always fuse or interface your waistband to just give it that nice form and a bit of strength. And
Actually, that's a good point, Libby. With if you've got something that's faced, and this is really like a waistband facing, usually, and in this instance, this interfacing has gone on the inside facing, but I've got a feeling that this outside one is interfaced as well. So generally, if I have a waistband that has a seam along the top, it's the outside layer that I would interface,
I would
and then not have any on the inside. Although, depending on the fabric, you could have the inside interfaced as well. On something like this, which is one piece with a fold along the top, I'd probably do the whole thing, so interface the whole waistband, so the inside and the outside, and then that'll give you a little bit more structure to that top edge as well, because, you know, on this one we've got 4 seams, you know, like we're bulking that up and adding structure to the top edge, but here it's just a fold, so we've only got the 2 layers. So back to this. So there's our whole waistband, and then now it will be a matter of adding on our 1 centimetre seam allowance all the way around, or 0.5 in half scale. Whoop. Okay, so this waistband here, call it a waistband. Here we would have cut 1 plus fusing, or you could say plus 1 fusing or something. So that means that the whole waistband is going to be fused.
Do you usually put a notch on the fold line mark out on the edges, or
You can. I mean, if you're
just fold in half?
yeah, exactly. So if you're making the pattern, you're doing the sample, you know it's going to fold there. But yes, you could have like a notch there indicating the fold.
Sometimes I write fold line on it too, but
Yep. And then you just make sure that you transfer these notches onto the cut edge as well, because nothing's more boring to sit down and start sewing a waistband and not having any notches.
makes life easy. You don't need as many pins.
Yeah, exactly right.
Use notches instead.
Okay, so there's our waistband talk.